Hi, this is Kim Kohler, and you are watching ECT TV, episode 38. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me. Today we're going to be making this cool necklace. It has lots of jump rings and it has this nice ombre effect, but everything's kind of chunky and a little bit funky and all together here. I'm going to show you all about how to make that necklace, and then I really encourage you to use your own creativity to come up with, your own necklace that maybe is inspired by this one. So at the end of the episode, you can come over to KimberlyKohler.com. I'll have the link below the description if you are watching this on YouTube, and I will have some more ideas listed out for you to think about that maybe you want to try out to make the necklace even more customized to your own liking. So let's get started. Okay, so I will show you what you will need for this necklace. You're going to need some chain, and you can really use whatever chain you want. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. You're going to need jump rings. I'm using 7mm jump rings. You'll need head pins. You can use ones that you've already purchased, and head pins are the pins that have the stopper at the end. I tend to always use 2-inch head pins, but you can make your own head pins or do something like that. That would look really cool too. And you're going to need beads. You do not need anywhere near this many beads. I just happened to buy this package actually at a flea market, and it's already kind of in a ombre effect here, so that's kind of what got my attention. And these beads are all different shapes and sizes, so I'm going to use that to my advantage. You could do this tutorial by actually just doing the exact same bead, all the same size. You can choose what colors you want to use. You don't have to do an ombre like I'm going to do. I'm going to show you that. There's many ways to customize this. Like I said, you could make your own head pins, and that would be a really cool look too. And then the tools that you will need are, you'll need wire cutters, you'll need chain nose pliers, you will need round nose pliers, and then you'll need another pair of pliers that are flat on the inside. I'm going to use bent nose pliers because we'll be opening and closing a lot of jump rings, and I find these are the best to use for that. But whatever you feel comfortable with and have on hand is fine. And you'll also need a clasp of whatever kind of clasp you want to use to for the end of your necklace to, close it. So let's get started. So like I said, you can use any beads you like, and I'm going to be using beads from this package. I think probably 20 beads is about the right amount of beads you can use. You can add more, you can have less, but it's kind of up to you, and maybe you can decide as you're making the necklace how it looks and go from there. So I have a beading tray here, and I've had this for years, so it's a little bit faded. I often don't use a beading tray for my projects, but in this case I want to create a specific effect, so I'm actually going to use this tray to kind of plan out my design for this necklace. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I have another tray too, very cute. I'm going to actually dump these beads out and pick out the beads I'm going to use. And I don't know if I mentioned that. This was quite a deal. I got it at a flea market. I got all these beads for $5, and there's a whole bunch of different shapes and sizes, which sometimes you may want, sometimes it may be frustrating, but in this case I'm going to use it to my advantage and try to get a nice combination. Now, what I'm noticing is most of my summer outfits have a lot of green and teal and blue in them, so that's why I got these beads, because I thought they would be perfect to go along with a lot of those outfits. So I'm just going to kind of make a design here. So I'm just going to start laying out beads, and I'm going to start with kind of the darker in the middle, and then I'm going to gradually get lighter going out. So I just found this one dark blue bead, and I'm just going to do this off camera so you don't have to hear that noise of me going through beads, and I'll show you what I come up with. Okay, so I have my beads all laid out, and I have these longer ones laying this way because that's how they're going to be hanging on the necklace. So we're going to be making bead dangles out of all of these, and so they'll be hanging from the necklace kind of straight up and down. So just so I could get a better idea, that's how I laid them. And looking through my camera, it doesn't actually, it's kind of hard to tell the differences here, but I did start out with a dark blue, kind of moving into a green to a very light green, till we get to a clear white color here. So I ended up using 28 beads. I may or may not use all of these by the time this is all said and done, but I like the 28 beads, and show you, you can't even tell a dent in the beads that I purchased. So I'll be making lots of projects with these beads. Okay, so the next step is we're going to make each and every single one of these beads into a bead dangle. So I'm just going to set this over to the side. And I'm going to show you how to make one bead dangle, and then you can use that to make all of the bead dangles that you have. And like I said, you can go back to my previous ECT TV episodes if you want to make your own head pins. They're decorative, maybe a spiral or knotted, something like that. That would look really cool with this necklace. I'm not going to do that today. I am just going to rely on the beads for the decoration of this necklace of mine, but you can experiment with that. So if you just go back through the old ECT TV episodes, you will find a few different options if you want to make your own head pin. But I'm going to be using these head pins I purchased at the store. Head pins, if you're very new, are the head pins you get at the store. They have a stopper on the end. Sometimes they'll have like a ball on the end. I'm not talking about eye pins that have the little loop, but if you like that, you could use those too, whichever you prefer. Alright, so I'll show you quickly how to make a bead dangle. So you're just going to slide the bead on, and I was just checking to make sure that the bead hole is not larger than the stopper on my head pin, because it has to stop it to stay on. If you do find that it is too big, then your options are to make your own head pins, or you could get a little seed bead or a smaller bead that will not come over the top here, and that will hold the bead on. So, you know, just pick a bead that looks nice with the other one and go from there. So now grab your round nose pliers, And I have a tip for making sure that all of your loops are the same throughout the entire project. And you just take a Sharpie and mark the point on your pliers where you're going to be making all your loops. It doesn't really matter exactly where that mark is, but just follow that throughout the whole entire project. And so to make a bead dangle, you're just going to take your round nose pliers. You're going to hold the bead just slightly above the bead, just a little tiny bit of room there. And then you bend the head pin down toward you. And then you're wrapping around your round nose pliers, so then the wire comes in between the bead and your pliers. So just like that. And then you can remove that from your loop. And now you're going to grab your chain nose pliers. So these are just any pliers. You can use flat nose pliers. Just make sure they're flat on the inside. They don't have teeth or anything. And then you'll notice that loop is off to the side. So how I like to straighten it is to hold the loop in my chain nose pliers, and then as I go around, I'm going to wrap this wire around. As I do that, I like to just kind of push up the loop so it's where I want it to be. And then I just make a full wrap. And then I switch hands and grab my bent nose pliers, or you could use other pliers that you have. If you have another pair of chain nose or flat nose, just anything that's flat on the inside. Bent nose are really great for this. And we're just going to make a few wraps around in the same direction. And you just want to pull them tightly, oops, and make sure they're close together. And as you just saw, if you're pulling very tightly on wire, make sure you're pulling hard. Make sure you are holding your pliers tightly on the wire, which I wasn't holding it tightly enough. And just be aware that sometimes wire can break, depending, you know, on how hard you're pulling and that sort of thing. I have a whole wire workshop, and I give some safety tips in that. You might want to refer back to that if you have not seen it. And then you just want to use your wire cutters to trim off any excess wire you may have. And I'm using the back of my wire cutters because that makes a nice flush cut, a nice straight cut. And then you just grab your chain nose pliers again and just make sure that end is not poking out. So I'm just kind of doing a motion sort of like this. I'll make it more obvious for you. And then you can just rub your finger and make sure that that is not poking out. And then you have your bead dangle. So now you just want to repeat that for all of your beads, and then we'll be back. I'll show you all of my beads as bead dangles. Okay, so I have made all of my beads into bead dangles, so they all have a little wire wrap loop on top, and I kept them all as I made them. I just put them over here and kept everything in order so you can keep track of it. So we're going to move on to the next step. So before we start on this step, and probably before you really get going on this project altogether, really, we want to just check something here. So I have 7mm jump rings. I have my chain. So I just want to make sure that these 7mm jump rings kind of slide over the chain, which I've already checked, and they do. So I just want you to check that before you go any further with your project. So that slides on there nicely, and this is how we're going to be sliding jump rings on, and so they'll be nice and loose. So you may want to experiment with your jump ring size or your chain size and maybe try a couple of different sizes of each if you have it, or if you just have, maybe you just have one size of chain, maybe you have a couple of sizes of jump rings. Try that. They do need to slide over because we're not going to attach them. They're going to be kind of free on the chain. We're not going to be putting them into the links of the chain, so they do need to go over, be able to fit over the chain, and not too tightly because we're adding our bead dangles to them as well, so we'll need a little room. So you're going to need jump rings for every single bead dangle, and then some extra ones because we're going to put a few in between the bead dangles as well. So you're going to need quite a bit of jump rings for this project. So you're going to be really used to opening and closing jump rings by the end. I'm going to quickly show you how to open and close a jump ring so you know, and then we'll get started kind of finishing up this necklace. Okay, so for those of you who do not know how to open and close jump rings, I am going to show you right now. You've maybe seen my quick video of how to open and close jump rings before. If you have, then you already know how to do this. If not, I'm going to teach you right now. So you need 2 pair of pliers. So I'm using bent nose pliers and chain nose pliers, but you can use 2 pair of chain nose pliers or some other sort of pliers, just as long as they're flat on the inside. You don't want to use round nose pliers. You don't want to use any pliers with teeth. So the first thing you do is you find the opening on the jump ring. It's like, you know, a little slit, and then you line up your pliers on the side of it, and then what you're going to do is just simply move 1 pair of pliers away from you and the other toward you. You're not going to open it this way. You're just going to simply move them forward and back. So I'm going to go forward with my right hand, backwards with my left hand. And that's all there is to it. So as you see, it's open, but it's still in a circle shape, and that is important. So for this project, we're going to be adding a bead dangle and then closing it again. To close, you do exactly the same thing but opposite, and you want to go back and forth a couple times until you feel or hear it click into place. You will probably hear it or most likely feel it, but you can go back and forth. You'll feel it click into place. So then that is 1 bead dangle, and you can set that aside and just continue adding a jump ring to each bead dangle. And then as far as the other jump rings, because we're going to add some extra jump rings in between, you might want to just kind of make sure everything's closed and straight the way you want it, because sometimes when you get jump rings, they're a little bit funky. So so do that, and I'm going to do that with all of my bead dangles, and I'll be back. Okay, so as you can see, I have added a jump ring to each of the bead dangles, and then I have a whole bunch of extra jump rings to the side here that we'll be using as well. So now we're just going to go ahead and go to our chain. So I've already cut a piece of chain off. I just measured around my neck to where I wanted it to lay and then cut it that length, so you can decide that for yourself. And then I'm just going to use a lobster clasp. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, I'm actually going to use 1 4mm jump ring to add the clasp to one end of the chain. So, oops, let me get it on the very last link. So you just add the clasp and then close the jump ring. And then I'm going to leave the other end open for now. But at the end, I'll just add a few jump rings, 7mm kind, for the clasp to hook into. Alright, so now we're just going to start adding the beads to the chain. And so this is pretty simple. So I'm just going to start at one end. So I have mine all laid out in the way I want. I'm just going to start at one end and start adding them. So I'm just simply adding the jump ring Just putting a chain right through the jump ring. And I just wanted to see, yes, okay, so for mine, my jump rings will not go over my clasp, so I don't have to worry about them falling off the end. So I'm just going to do one bead dangle, and then I'm going to do 2 jump rings that are just plain in between each of the bead dangles. So I'm just going to do 2 of those. Like I mentioned, you want to make sure that they're closed the way you want before you start using them. And then I'm adding another bead dangle, and I just want to show you what it kind of looks like so far. So you may or may not want to put the jump rings in between. I think it adds a little extra. So I'm just going to go ahead and string this up, and then we'll finish up the necklace. Okay, so as you can see, I have strung all of my bead dangles, and I have put jump rings in between each dangle. I used 2 jump rings in between each one, and there's literally a lot of movement and color. It's a lot of fun. So to finish this up, I am just going to add a few 7mm jump rings at the end, and actually I've also made this extra bead dangle I'm going to put on the end here too. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up a jump ring, place it on the end here. Okay, so I've had this problem before, and it's okay that it's happening right on camera because I can show you how to fix it now. The chain I'm using is very small. The jump rings I'm using are thick. So, jump rings come in different gauges, but I know that all my 7mm jump rings I have right now are all the same gauge. So I am just simply grabbing a 4mm jump ring, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to put that on the very end, and then I'm going to take one of my closed jump rings, 7mm, and attach it there. And then I'm just going to add a few more. So I got from the chain to the bigger jump ring by using a 4mm, and now I'm just going to put a few more 7mm on here. So just like I showed you how to open and close jump rings, that's all I'm really doing right now. So I'm attaching it to the last one. And then one more to add the bead dangle. So I'm just going to attach that, place the bead dangle in it, close it. Oops. And then this lobster clasp can hook into any one of those loops, and then it works fine. So this is the end result. This is my necklace. It's ombre, and it's got all this fun movement, and I hope you love this necklace as much as I do. I'm excited to wear it. So remember, there will be some pictures to show you how to make this necklace if you learn better via picture, or you don't want to watch this whole video again, you just want to refer back to it. If you sign up for my newsletter, I send out this tutorial via PDF. So that means you can download it and keep it. But you have to be on my newsletter. If you sign up quickly, you might still get this one, or you may have to wait till the next one, but you'll get the future ones. And I also have been releasing the PDFs in different volumes from sets of the ECT TV episodes. So right now I just have Volume 1 up for sale. Volume 2 will be up shortly. Volume 1 is episodes 1 through 12. Volume 2 is episodes 13 through 24. Volume 3 will be coming out very soon. And so they're just $5 for all those tutorials. So if you really like PDF, then I suggest you look into that. So come on over to KimberlyKoehler.com. The link will be down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. And I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great day.